Hey guys, I hope you're doing good. I've just finished watching this documentary that people have been going on about for quite a while now. We've seen trailers all the time, and a client brought it up to me and said, look, dude, you need to watch this. I'm always very skeptical with nutrition documentaries, especially on Netflix. And if you haven't seen it, kind of a lot of the things that come up with that one, what the health, come up again in here, and it's very, very biased. I'm going to go through some of the things that are said here. Now, I want to tell you guys that I've worked and work with plant-based athletes and entrepreneurs with great success. It can be done. It can be done. Now, I've also gone plant-based myself at one point or another. However, when I have done it with a lot of details, gone into the details, actually, I went through quite a bad period with my health. Whether that was linked, I'm not going to put 2 and 2 together and get 5, 6, 7 or 8, but we can look into some of the things in the film. Looking at the actual documentary, it is done by James Cameron, Arnie, Jackie Chan, Chris Paul, Novak Djokovic, then Lewis Hamilton, who is my favourite Formula One driver, I will say that, and has opened up a plant-based restaurant, or invested in a chain of plant-based restaurants, ironically at the same time of the film being made. Louis, I can't say this guy's name, Joseph Pace, and the guy that walks you through it goes onto a plant-based diet. He's an MMA fighter from the UK. I think he's from Leicester, James Wilkes, but in the film, for some reason, he's walking along with that badge, the Norwich City football team badge, on his shirt. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is that they claim to be very science-based when it comes to the studies being used. However, looking at some of the studies, they aren't necessarily the greatest, especially when you consider they are saying about the people that were studying meat, saying meat is very healthy, and criticizing their studies. It's kind of like they've got one part of the actual study, what it's going to do, picked out one sentence and said, great, let's use that study. One of the studies in there, mortality in British vegetarians. I've got my notes up here. This isn't coming from memory. Mortality in British vegetarians by Appleby, Thorogood, Burr, Key and Mann. The conclusion, when they looked at mortality in British vegetarians, without going into the depths of what was studied here, what was studied there, and all these different things, British vegetarians have low mortality compared with the general population. Their death rates are similar to those of comparable non-vegetarians. Suggestion that much of this benefit may be attributed to non-dietary lifestyle factors such as low prevalence of smoking and a generally high socio-economic status, or to aspects of the diet other than avoidance of meat and fish. Chances are, if you are following some of the things in this film, and you are going from, which the film does amazingly, comparing a very healthy plant-based lifestyle to a very unhealthy meat-based lifestyle. Because a lot of times when people are meat-based, there's some very unhealthy decisions that go with it. Low vegetables, low fiber, chances are more alcohol, more processed food, low sleep quality, and all these different things. Because there's not this focus on health. Now, it would not necessarily be because you are going to follow the plant-based methods that you get healthy. It's going to be that all these other things that resides around making changes to your diet come into play. You then get a bit more aware of what exercise you are doing. You then get a bit more aware of how much water you're drinking, of how much vegetables. Well, vegetables are what you're going to be eating. More movement, and looking at cutting out other foods such as more processed foods, high gluten foods, and all these different things. Poor quality dietary items, and that will result in benefits to your health. It's a great comparison, as I say, between the healthy plant-based diet and an unhealthy meat-based diet. They go into the fact that the gladiators, the Roman gladiators, were vegetarians. They actually say they were plant-based. Then they go on to say they were predominantly vegetarians, not 100%, and that early humans were eating mostly plants. That's not to say that they weren't eating meat. When we look at what was readily available around there for them, they had to actually go and hunt their meat and then eat it. The food that they were growing was going to be much more readily available. That's to say, maybe we should cut down on a little bit of meat if we want to follow what the gladiators were doing and what the early humans were doing. But what also was their life expectancy? I don't know that, I'm just throwing that one out there. Then they go into the athletes. They go into some NFL, I think it's from the Miami Dolphins. They get 3 of the guys there and looking at how they're going to react. It's a good study, like what they're showing, what happens in their blood 6 to 7 hours after eating meat, and there's fat in the blood and so on. Now, the athletes in the film, pretty much all the athletes in the film are at an elite level. They don't say how long all of them have actually switched over to plant-based or not, or whether it was last week, last year, 10 years, all their life. Some of them they do. Now, when we look at the athletes of an elite level, I find it very hard to compare with the general population because there is such a mass amount of detail in their diet and the amount of people they have on their team. The improvements that potentially could be had in their diet could also be coming from better massage techniques. They could be coming from better recovery from cryotherapy, from IV vitamin treatment, from compressions, from massages and all these different things. I find it very, very hard to compare elite athletes with the general population. But maybe we can take something from that. Even the football players, though, talk about when they're at home having like Popeye's chicken and fried chicken, all these different things very, very regularly. So I have to question the fact that if they went plant-based or if they actually cleaned up their diet so they were 100% on the ball all the time, would they still get some benefits? They then go on to say about glycogen stores are going to be replenished better on a plant-based diet. No shit, Sherlock, because glycogen stores do get replenished better when you are eating carbohydrates. We know that. We've seen the studies on that. We've seen the endurance studies, the 10,000 meter walkers, when they lost power, they lost speed, they lost endurance and performance by going low carb. And they say about high carb versus ketogenic diet. That isn't a study on plant-based. That is a study on carbohydrates, which do come from plants, against the ketogenic diet. Therefore, I mean, that's not comparing like apples with apples and all this different stuff. One thing they do trick people into saying, because Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of the executive producers of this film. I'm a previous bodybuilder. Obviously, I love Arnie. I can't wait to see the new Terminator film. But about 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was a video came up, which was on YouTube from Men's Health. Arnie talking about how he eats meat. And he was taking the piss with blending an egg in his protein shake, I believe, because he put the shell in. But he still eats meat. They never really say vegan. They never say about every single person that they're following a vegan diet or vegetarian diet. They say they are following a plant-based diet, which is a good twist, allowing them to actually appear that they're not eating meat because they might actually be eating meat. They're just basing their diet around plants. That's what I do. That's what I get my clients to do. If we eat mostly plants, some good sources of protein, then great. Another one they go into, the beetroot study, supplementation. Yes, we know beetroot potentially could be good for endurance, for nitric oxide levels and everything. However, looking at a lot of studies, and I've done this in my master's about 3 years ago, we looked into studies of this at the time, and having a quick look over before then, so this was 2016-17, and looking over quickly now, there isn't actually many studies to say whether there's a positive or negative impact on the cardiorespiratory endurance in trained athletes. We need more research on that. However, whilst a beetroot is a plant, is that really to go against meat-based? Now, also talking about the glycogen stores on there as well. We know that meat is going to be pretty much protein. and fats. Therefore, it's not going to top up your glycogen stores very well. Now, James goes on to talk about how he's recovering from his knee injuries. He's saying that his knee injuries are basically taking him out of the UFC and he wants to recover from them. He doesn't say how much he trained before his actual injuries. Then he goes on to say that he's been doing a lot of cardio work, and then he goes into his gym. The only thing he can do is battle ropes. They have a leaderboard that says 10 minutes you get on this leaderboard. Not many people do it. And 20 minutes, you're the creme de la creme. You are right at the top. And the previous PB was 8 minutes. Now he's actually getting 61 minutes of straight battle rope work. That's boring as fuck. But 61 minutes of straight battle rope work. That is amazing. However, when you've been working on technique, when you've been working on strength, when you've been working on power, when you've been wrestling and doing all the different things that MMA athletes do, and then you take a break from that, your central nervous system is probably going to get a lot of recovery. Then you've had 6 weeks of really focusing on your diet 100% after probably having some food where you probably shouldn't have had it because you felt shit because you've been literally injured and taken out of the game. Your cardiovascular system is probably going to be pretty decent to do a movement such as battle ropes for a long while. Also, there's a psychological aspect, the placebo effect. Is that going to have an impact? Who knows? Maybe we should get some more studies on that. But to have that sort of improvement is pretty big in that time. The big thing that comes on here is talking about heme iron and non-heme iron. Now, iron we know is pretty much an essential nutrient for humans, providing we don't have too much heme iron. Now, more than 95% of the functional iron in the human body is heme. However, they say that there's non-heme iron is all from plants. About 50-60% of the iron in good quality animal products is non-heme iron. Also in the eggs and dairy, and that wasn't even mentioned. Now, it's also, heme iron is more readily absorbed than non-heme iron. Only about 5 to 10% of the non-heme iron will you absorb into the body and actually be able to use. Therefore, if you look at the amount of iron in the vegetables you're taking in, you're going to have 90% more of that than you would the heme levels, which is a hell of a lot of vegetables to get the level of iron you need. Unless you've got a condition called hemochromatosis, which you will absorb a shit ton more. That's the technical term. Now, also, we know that non-heme iron is massively impacted by the composition of the meal you're having. Therefore, if you haven't done any research into having the right foods with your vegetables and getting the composition right, you might actually be having even less than 5 to 10% absorption rate. You can see why that a lot of vegans, a lot of people that are having plant-based diets do get low iron if it's not done right. And also when they have to look at that B12 levels and all these different things. Supplement with B12 isn't necessarily going to cut it because there's so many poor supplements out there. And also, we look at the amount of stress levels we've been under. If we look at my previous video the other day, which was talking about stomach acid, if your stomach acid's low, then you're not going to be able to break away the B12 from the protein and all these different things when we degrade our foods, then be able to actually use that. And that's one of the most vital nutrients for methylation, which is responsible for like 200 different processes in the liver. And you don't get that, there's going to be homocysteine problems. You have homocysteine problems, you are probably going to have heart problems, even if you're plant-based. Now, cholesterol goes down. I always get a little bit dubious when cholesterol goes down because they never say whether it's good cholesterol or bad cholesterol. Pretty much all the time it's total cholesterol. We do need cholesterol in our bodies to help us with health. Hormone production and other processes are needed with cholesterol. We're near the end here. Cortisol dropped 27% by going plant-based. Remember what I said at the start about lifestyle benefits? If you are switching from a poor plant-based, meat-based diet to a healthy plant-based diet, chances are you are going to be focusing more on your sleep. Chances are you're going to be getting more hydration. Chances are you're going to be lowered stress overall. Maybe other practices are going on, exercise, movement, and all these different things that actually will probably do some good with your cortisol levels. You then have less caffeine, which is going to stimulate things and boost your cortisol levels. Therefore, yes, cortisol levels dropping would be a great thing. Remember, we do need cortisol. And one of the health problems out there is that people don't actually release enough cortisol because they've been too stressed for too long, and their blood glucose levels are all over the place, which has thrown that out, and then they've got hormone issues as a result. But overall, maybe we could eat less meat. I don't eat as much meat as I did when I competed in bodybuilding. That's just how it is. I maybe have a chicken breast every day, or a burger or steak or something like that every day. I have some days when I eat no meat at all. There was also debunked in here talking about soy and how the estrogen levels. Now, I wouldn't really have too much soy, but a little bit isn't really going to harm you too much. Therefore, if you want to have some, cool. But overall, when I start working with a client, and if you need any help with this, drop me a message. Overall, we will look at lifestyle factors first. We will look at making sure someone is adequately hydrating themselves. And honestly, using tap water, using bottled water even nowadays, we can't be sure that that is going to hydrate you. We want to manage your blood glucose levels. Chances are we're going to be going a little bit low carb if you're really thrown out of whack with your blood glucose levels. Is plant-based dieting going to be the best for helping you with that? It's going to vary from person to person. We are going to need to eat more fiber and eat more vegetables. That is a given if you've been eating very poorly. You've been eating processed fast food. We need to get consistency with sleep, and that is one of the biggest things around here that we can impact with our health. Consistency with sleep and sleep quality. And to get better sleep quality, which I'm going to be doing a video on tomorrow after my post on Sunday, to get better sleep quality, we are going to look at managing our blood glucose levels. Now, is going plant-based going to help you with all that? Potentially a bit. It's not my place to say go plant-based. If it is for ethical reasons, great. Honestly, if we could get exactly the same health, and I knew that all the studies showed we could get exactly the same health by eating plant-based diet with the substitutes of meat, because if you look at the Beyond Meat burgers and probably a lot of other burgers out there and corn and things like that that can contain gluten and all other things, the Beyond Meat burgers, there's loads of fillers and other stuff in there. What do they do to your health? There are some great meat alternatives out there, some bean burgers and different things like that. If we could get all that from a plant-based diet, why would we go and harm animals? Honestly. Now, the choice is actually up to you. I can't force anything on anyone. My job, if someone comes to me that is plant-based, if someone comes to me that is eating meat, is to make sure we get them as healthy as possible. And if my advice to them is to lower their amount of meat, great. If my advice to them is, look, maybe we should, and it's not for ethical or religious reasons, maybe we should improve our meat or increase our meat intake, great. Every single person is treated on a case-to-case basis. But honestly, I'm not going to watch the film again. Even being a big Arnie fan, a big Hamilton fan, a Jackie Chan fan, a Chris Paul fan, shit, I've got his sneakers in the cupboard. But I'm not going to watch it again. Take an hour and a half out and watch it for yourself. Have a great day, guys. If you need any help, you know where I am. Your body is your business. Take care.